Welcome to The One Thing, where each episode features our signature segment, Pandora's Box. We dive into hot topics that challenge the norm and ignite real conversation.
Inspired by Greek mythology, Pandora's Box isn't just about chaos. It's about truth, transformation and hope. That's what we bring to every conversation.
Have a cause or business that deserves to be seen? Want to be remembered forevermore? Be our next special guest. Contact us today at theonething@edgeradioaustralia.com.
And welcome to The One Thing on Edge Radio Australia. It's fantastic to have you listening or watching wherever you are all over the world. And it's great to be here with my co-hosts, Leanne and Aaron, and Dr. Conor Sexton, although apparently he's not too connected to the doctor bit.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome, who we will introduce very shortly. So in this week on Pandora's Box, we are going to be talking about trusting your body, not the bottle. And we're going to actually challenge the possible overuse of pharmaceuticals and reveal how many families are discovering that chiropractic healing has empowered their lifelong health. But let me tell you a little bit about Conor. So Conor's passion for chiropractic began early in life, having grown up receiving care alongside his family. And I'm going to ask you a little bit more about that in a minute. This positive experience inspired his dedication to spinal health and overall well-being, eventually leading him to pursue a career as a chiropractor. After graduating with distinction from RMIT University in Victoria in 2008, Dr. Conor began practicing in Melbourne before making the move to Perth. He joined Mindari Chiropractic Centre, where he became a valued and committed member of the team. And in time, Conor took the next step in his professional journey, purchasing the clinic and transforming it into a thriving family-owned practice, which he now runs alongside his wife, who is also a chiropractor. And Conor's just shared with me that he's in the process of actually moving from the premises that is into an even bigger one, which I'm very excited about hearing about. But what I'd love for you to share, Conor, is, and I'm springing this on you, one of the things that I really remember the very first time I met you, which was over a decade ago now, was that you were telling me about your family environment. I'd love for you to share a little bit about your childhood and the women who have shaped your life.
Sure. Yeah.
Ooh.
So I was lucky enough to have 4 older sisters.
Oh, yeah. Sorry to laugh.
Right. So you're very quiet at home. Gotcha. Okay.
So the age gap between me and the eldest is 7 years. So mum and dad, good Irish Catholics.
Yep.
So that was really loving. Mum and dad, beautiful parents, really caring. I have a lot of cousins, especially on my mum's side, who are very similar age. So I think I have, I don't know, like 29 cousins or maybe 20, 25 cousins, something like that.
Very Catholic.
Yep.
A lot of cousins. So every weekend was around my grandparents with a lot of them and running riot.
Awesome.
And yeah, it's good fun. Had a lovely childhood.
Beautiful.
What a strange way to start the show. Let's
I know.
lay down on the couch and let's talk about your childhood.
Exactly.
I didn't realise this was a psychiatric hour.
You know what? I was actually concerned more about the bottle when I was like, what bottle are we talking about? Are we talking about Lisa's bottle? Or Aaron's Scotch bottle? Sorry.
Right, well, let's open the floor. What's your experience with chiropractic treatment?
Okay. Well, I've had a long association with chiropractic.
Yeah, awesome.
So, yeah, absolutely. From childhood onwards. And I used to originally see, they were very famous in the day, the Martinovich brothers down in Fremantle, which is old school chiropractic.
They use the tennis ball?
Tennis ball, squash ball, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
2 brothers there, one who was known for being more gentle than the other.
Yeah.
And that sort of judged on the length of the line to see him, pretty much. That was pretty full on. I used to go the option of the guy who was a little bit, can't remember his name, I think it was Chris, was a little bit rougher.
One of them is adjusting horses now.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Wow.
That's the one you probably had, Harry.
He's got the strength for it, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, no, a really positive thing of old school chiropractic. And I didn't like, and I'll go straight for it, I didn't actually like physio at the time because physio I felt was just too soft, too gentle, didn't really, crack it, make it work. So for me, that was good. And then later on in my racing career, I was very lucky to have a rallying career. So
nice.
great on the back,
Yeah.
fantastic, jumping cars and things like that. So chiropractic and the Martinovich brothers definitely got me through there. So, and even to this point, and I went away for a long time, but I'm back at the chiropractors these days. Very different style.
And you were saying the other day, weren't you, that you miss your weekly?
I do. Oh,
adjustments?
look, absolutely. I missed one because of public holidays, and I went back to feeling like a 90-year-old man.
Oh no.
So, and for me, it's an interesting journey. So, as far as the difference, because I've gone from the old school crack,
Yeah.
to the chiropractor I'm seeing now she is just amazing and so gentle.
Awesome.
The coolest chick too, I might add. Like really cool. I feel like
he's got a crush on her, Leanne.
How old is she, Aaron?
I have the right to remain silent. No, but she's just
if you
awesome.
know a chiropractor and she's female and she's single, Aaron's looking.
I am looking, okay? I need the care and, actually I just need the care. That's pretty what it comes down to.
Don't we all?
But, yeah, so from my point of view, I didn't believe in the gentle approach because I didn't like physio. I felt that always did nothing for me back in my days of damaging myself.
He was not like Bowen.
But as I've gotten older,
did he not like Bowen?
Oh, that's only a couple of moves. There's a few moves that are, but mostly it's not. Mostly it's
but my perception's changed because now the care that I'm getting at the moment, Serena is her name, and she does. It's very, very gentle, and use of the chair that does the droppy bit and all of that. I use all the technical stuff. Man, it's magic.
It is,
it's
isn't
absolutely magic.
Yeah.
So what would you say if somebody walked in and said, be gentle with me?
There's lots of different ways. I'm happy. I mean, I do a technique called SOT, sacro-occipital technique, and that one can be very, very gentle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that one can be, you can do really light touch, or you can decide to go a bit heavier if you feel it's needed.
Okay.
But, yeah.
And what's the difference between what you do in Bowen
I do
treatment
nothing to
and
I do nothing
chiropractic?
to the skeletal system.
Okay, so
Mine's all
so your muscles?
muscles, fascia, tissue. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
So-
Question already up. We have a collection of Lisas around here. Hello, Lisa L. Thank you very much for
They're
your
all
question.
very cool.
Oh, of course. Yeah, goes without saying.
This one's particularly cool. Sorry, just have to say.
Oh, thank you, Leah.
It's having a Lisa appreciation party, but never mind. Hi, everyone. How does chiropractic, chiropractic, we'll go with that, differ from physio?
Yeah, I guess it comes back to the model. So the model of chiropractic is based on the nervous system. So you have your brain and your nervous system that control and coordinate what's going on in your body.
Okay.
And when that gets interfered with, and that, so that can happen with joints that get stuck and not moving properly, seized up.
Yep.
That interferes with the brain's ability to send messages and receive messages. And so that impacts the function.
Yeah.
So that's a really clear model of chiropractic, which started in 1895 with D.D. Palmer.
Right.
Whereas physio, I can't talk for them, but it's a bit different from that.
What's the difference between osteo and chiro?
So there's a bit of crossover. The base of osteo came from blood flow.
Yeah.
Whereas the base of chiropractic came from neurology.
Yeah.
So people think we're spine doctors. We really are doctors of the nervous system. So our whole emphasis, no matter who you see, whether they go heavy or light, it's about how do we interact with that nervous system and how do we improve its function.
Because I had a really bad experience.
Yeah. Sorry to hear that. It can happen.
Really bad experience.
I've been to a bad dentist too.
So
but I still go.
You know how,
It's a great way of looking at it. Yeah.
You know how you have a 3-week-old baby? I had a 3-month-old and a 22-month. Oh, no, how was it? 3 months, 3 weeks? Anyway, very young, still breastfeeding. And I had a sore lower back and went and had an adjustment done. And I actually ended up, the vertebrae were bone on bone. I couldn't move for I don't know how long, and couldn't even go to the toilet. Couldn't even walk.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like someone's done the
Not
right
fun.
thing.
And it wasn't a chiropractor, just saying. It was an osteopath.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I will never go there again.
Yeah, well, even with osteos, as I said, there's good and bad ones, right? So, and sometimes
These were supposed to be reputable osteopaths. I'm not going to mention names because they're still practicing.
Right.
Well, they are practicing. They're no good at it.
And they're practicing
Clearly.
in my area, but I just don't. So I'm very, very, very adverse into having anything done.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is just associated with my spine.
Yeah. So I guess what we'd look at is, say, if you came in, we'd be doing really gentle techniques with you. So things like block work or activator or, CMRT, which would be about helping reset postural reflexes. Yeah. So there's different ways that you can interact with the with the body. And I guess that's the art form. So in chiropractic, it's called the science, art, and philosophy of chiropractic.
Okay.
So the philosophy is like anything. You have to have a reason why you do something.
Mhm.
So that's the model. And then you have the science. What do you know? You need to know that side of it. And then the art is the application.
Of course.
That's probably the hardest part. As a bone therapist
Yeah.
yourself, it's about knowing what to do, when to do, and how far, and probably more importantly, when to stop.
And there'd be a lot of assessment in that prior to doing something with someone as well,
Yeah.
wouldn't they? You guys do a lot of assessment,
Yeah.
Functional assessment of the body
Gotcha,
before they do stuff. Yeah, I'd say
Yeah.
so, yeah.
So we like start date, end dates.
Yeah.
And we like to have goals and measurements to actually make sure that you've made an impact or
And,
you've improved function.
And I think
Okay.
the beauty of this is, and I think we were touched on this a little bit, is it's not about it's about looking at where it stems from. It's not looking at masking the symptom. It's looking
Correct.
at where it stems from and how best to address that,
Yeah.
and then allow the body to do the healing. Is that
Correct.
similar to what you
Well,
guys would do?
Yeah. So I would say that no matter what healthcare profession you're in, whether you're in a vitalistic one like chiropractic or Bowen, or whether you're a doctor doing drugs and surgery, none of them work on dead people, right? So if the body's got to be alive to heal.
Mm.
And so within the function, are we helping restore base function so the body can get back to its normal state?
Okay.
Health is your normal state. It's not an adverse state.
And we forget that, don't we?
Yeah.
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 I certainly have.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Yeah. And so when the reason why you're unhealthy or the reason why you have symptoms is because it's a bit like you start off healthy and strong and you've got a backpack that's empty. A guy called James Chestnut came up with this analogy. He's a chiropractor from Canada. He's wonderful. If you ever want to listen to his stuff, James Chestnut. He's got the most beautiful, elegant way of talking about it.
Okay.
And he's not afraid to offend people, which is even funnier.
Perfect.
So he came up with this analogy of you walk around with a backpack, and each time you have something that adversely affects your health, it puts a rock in your backpack.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can carry it for a little while, right? But if you get too many rocks in your backpack, it's going to drag you down. And eventually you put enough rocks in your backpack, you can't move. And
I've got Uluru back here. Okay. I'm doing my bit.
So with chiropractic, we're looking to how can we help your body, how can we help remove some of those rocks from your backpack so that you can get back to your normal state of health.
What a great analogy.
Do you actually imagine that when people walk in? Like, do you kind of see how big the backpack is?
No, well, in different ways.
Yeah.
But you do watch, and you'd be the same. You get so much from just getting someone standing up or lying down.
Or
on the
as soon as
table,
they
how
walk in
move.
and they've got this drag happening, or anything
Or just
like
their
that.
facial features.
Yeah, facial
just-
features, drop of the shoulders.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell.
Well, you get strange things. Like I've got a dodgy ankle at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Which I'm having a lot of problems with. But there's nothing wrong with my ankle as far as because I've compensated by the way I'm walking because of back pain.
Yeah.
Right. So I carry myself differently, and that's actually caused another problem. So it would be like, okay, to cure the ankle, you need to go to the back.
Yeah.
Is what I'm sort of saying. Yeah.
Can be. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in this particular case, that's
very
what I'm
similar
trying
to lots of different things.
Yeah.
Shoulder,
Yeah.
But I'm
can
just
come from
saying-
the hip, yeah.
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 The end result might not actually be where the injury is.
Well, only 10% of your nerves send pain messages, right?
Okay.
So if you use pain as an indicator of your overall health, it's really bad.
Oh,
Okay.
really?
It's bad math.
Right.
Oh.
Okay.
So, like, if
Never
you
heard
want to
that.
go even further, if you use full-on symptoms as your indicator of health, what's the first symptom of a heart attack?
Well,
exactly.
You're having one.
You're having one.
Right.
Yeah.
Or like
Oh.
they talk about stroke as
Okay.
being like, what are the different signs and symptoms of stroke?
You've
having
already
a
had the stroke. Yeah.
Yeah.
Face is
Right.
dropping,
So there's no warning signs, Connor.
No. So there are, but they're more subtle. They're not just how you feel. So when you take things to feel good, or like you get those, we won't name names of companies, but they talk about, take this substance so that you can feel good and get through your day. That's not helping your health.
That would be every pharmaceutical, wouldn't it?
That would be a lot of them.
Yeah.
We don't talk about that.
Yeah.
Well, I will, because I've got no consequences for it. So away we go. But no, you're absolutely right. Okay, like we're so told, take this pill to take away the pain.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? The problem's still there.
Yeah.
You've just put a Band-Aid on it. You really have.
Yeah.
So
You've taken away your perception of what, and then if you're going to go and do something, you've taken away that pain, you can actually do yourself some more damage.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Because you don't have the feedback. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of athletes go through that when, they steroid things up and all of that.
Yeah.
So they take the pain away so you can keep competing,
Mm.
Correct.
but you're just really damaging yourself more and more.
Yeah. And then they
Hmm.
pay for it later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like living on a credit card.
Yeah.
Eventually the interest rate comes in.
Hmm. And what's the difference between chiropractors throughout the world, Conor?
It's funny. Chiropractic is remarkably consistent throughout
Okay.
the world. So it's one of those, I'd say it's one of the rare professions actually that hasn't changed its model
Right.
since it started in 1895.
Well, that really surprises me because in my perception
Yeah.
or my experience, it has.
Well, the technique in terms of applying it
Yep.
has evolved.
Yeah.
But the model hasn't changed.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's and even then you could go to another chiropractor and they might be doing a different technique that's a bit more forceful, like say Gonstead or something like that you might go, wow, that's like old school chiropractic. But Gonstead's just as old as SOT, but SOT is really soft.
Right.
Or Thompson, which is the drop piece technique, the droppity bit.
Droppity. It's technical terms.
Yeah.
I'm glad you and I use the same tech terms. It's great.
Droppity.
So Thompson, he was a really short guy who
Right.
worked in a mining town. And
Okay.
he couldn't do the techniques that he learned at school.
Oh, so he made up his
He
own.
invented the drop piece
Ah.
to create speed that could be more gentle so that you can get the same impact, the same input
Yep.
into the nervous system, but without having to use the force that he got taught.
But it's
Wow.
crazy gentle. Like
Yeah.
it really is. And it makes such a difference, certainly in my life.
Yeah.
And I was surprised by it because I saw it and thought, the skeptic in me just popped straight up and go, like that's going to do anything.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
They're
then,
the fun ones.
and then
Yeah.
I miss a week. And I don't want to be going for the rest of my life, even though I do like my chiropractor.
Yeah.
You
You got other things to do.
I've got other things to do. Yeah.
And speaking of that, Conor, how many sessions is on average? How many sessions, and are they a week apart, or are they a day apart, or what's the mechanism of treating someone?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different studies that came out recently, and it really depends on where you're at and how bad you are, right? So if you're initial and you're really acute or you're really chronic and you've had it for a long time, what the research is telling us that's best, it's the HUS study that came out and said for over a 3-month period, if you come 3 times a week for that 12 weeks, that's got the best outcome. So that's what that study found.
Okay.
And then post that, it found that some form of care going forward is important as well, because otherwise you just get regression. So for me, it comes down to essentially what keeps you better, what gets you better keeps you better.
Sure.
And it's a bit like you can go to the gym, you can get really fit, and then once you're really fit, just because you never go back to the gym again doesn't mean you stay really fit.
You've got some great examples.
So
this is so true.
And I guess that's the key about chiropractic. It's working with function, not symptoms.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about getting someone who's really poorly functioning, their function up, it's more intense in the beginning. And that can vary. Like I don't see little children 3 times a week for 3 months.
Exactly.
Right? I might see them twice a week for 3 to 4 weeks before I reassess them.
Sure.
Right. But if you got someone who's really acute, who's had the problem for a long time as well, then that's going to take longer.
Yeah.
So speaking of children, would you recommend this treatment for newborns?
Yeah, I mean, well, one of the best things that came out for chiropractic from a bad perspective, I guess, or was the Royal Commission into Chiropractic Care in Children, right?
Okay.
And so a few years back, there was a big hoo-ha, and the Victorian government made this commission into it, and they found that in the entire history of chiropractic care in Australia, not one time had a chiropractor had a really severe adverse reaction as a child. So what that tells us is the data from all the insurance companies, right, from APRA, all of those, is that we're really, really safe, which is really
That's great to hear. I mean,
and that comes from a government-funded project.
I've never trusted the Victorian government.
Yeah.
So there you go.
And I was going to ask, is that why I came over from Melbourne? Because we have the better state.
For your safety, absolutely.
Won't be 4 sisters. That's something good.
Yeah.
But then from that, they also found that when they have these studies, they have these green aspects of like, so they ask the public to write in and tell them their experiences. And so green was good and red was bad.
Right.
And they gave this report to all the people who were on the thing, and they're like, oh, where's the red? Because it was all green.
Wow.
Right. So not only are we finding that it's really got a really good safety record going by this, it's also got really high satisfaction rating from parents who've taken their kids.
Mick Jagger approved. I like it.
So it's one of those things that I'll be like, that's a an interesting aspect
I think so.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Another question in there from Lisa. Thank you for that. Interesting, because our model of healthcare has changed with the advent of pharmaceuticals. Has the model of chiropractic or chiropractic?
That must be a word. Is
Must
it?
be a word that I
Chiropractic?
can't pronounce clearly. Of chiropractic, we'll call it that. Stay true to its beginnings. Is it influenced by pharma?
Yeah, so it has stayed true.
Yep.
And it is not influenced by pharma, which is one of the aspects that's made it interesting. So if you want to, if you can track it down, there is a case called the Wilkes case in America, where he successfully sued the American Medical Association on behalf of chiropractic for defamation.
Okay.
Wow.
So that was based on a lot of the, I guess, misnomers. They started something called the Quackery Board in 1950,
Oh, yeah.
where they started a lot of disinformation, and they were spreading, or they were teaching doctors.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to stop you there. There's no way the AMA would do such a thing, or the TGA, or any of these associations. There was no way they would ever harm. Well,
so that's the American one. So
health versus pharma.
That was interesting. So that's part of it. So definitely not on board. And one of the reasons why they're not on board with us is because chiropractic from the get-go really fought not to be under the medical model, because it's specifically working with the body to work better without the use of pharmaceuticals.
That's brilliant. I really like that. And
so we don't prescribe.
Yeah,
so we can't give you any drugs.
Why would you?
That's
though?
a choice as
you
well.
walk away without pain. You don't need them, right? I mean, look, I understand and I respect your position here, what you can and can't say. So I'll say things.
Yeah, because he's under APRA. Is that it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So there are a lot of things that, and I don't know, and I'm not going to pretend I know your opinions, but I certainly know mine. And I think that the big pharma has far too much to do with the sickness of human beings, as far as I'm concerned.
Have you read the book by Gerald Posner?
No, I haven't.
Pharma, the poisoning of America, something like that.
Yeah, okay.
And it's
I've actually heard of the book and read it.
It's like this big,
okay,
and half of it's references.
Right.
And he hasn't been sued.
So there you go. Says a lot to
right.
it. Yeah. Look, I'm not anti.
There's a real well, it is interesting because they've done a really interesting way of influencing health throughout the years by having, what this book dives deep into is how do they influence medical journals, and how do they influence what journals are what information is published. So it does create an interesting aspect of when you read a journal or when you read an article, is you've got to read, go deep into it. What's the mechanisms? What does the actual data say? Not just what the little excerpt says at the front.
Do you know what I find is a really good method for that? Is I find out who actually funded the research, and then I know the answer. Yeah, and that tends to suggest what's going on there. I'm not for one second saying that that pharmaceuticals don't have their place, and absolutely, it's incredibly important. There's a lot of very, very good medicine out there, a lot of really good ways of keeping people healthy or taking away their pain. But I think we've grown in a society now where we just look straight to it. Oh, a pill will fix it. Oh, an injection will fix it. Well, I think we've seen that that's not really the case.
And while we're on that subject, what I'd be interested in asking you, Conor, is what I find is that when people go and see a healthcare professional, I don't find this with the GP, and people do it with the hairdresser as well. They tend to really open up and share a lot of information. With the people that are coming to see you, do you have any idea how many people are actually using antidepressants, ADH medications, all those pharmaceuticals, just as a percentage?
Well, especially the ADH one, that's rising a lot. The antidepressants have been pretty high. I think there's over 1 billion people in the world now on antidepressants.
I heard somewhere about regarding antidepressants, because is it England? The water gets recycled. That pretty much everyone's on antidepressants because of the recycling of the water. That's what I heard. So that still sits in the water, and once it goes through a sewage system, gets recycled, gets changed, all that sort of stuff, it comes back, and people obviously consuming it and drinking it. And so it's a...
But
I don't know if
it's lost its power.
Don't know. I heard.
But I heard the same thing.
I heard the same thing. So, very, very
Do you find it's more men or women?
Predominantly women, but you do see it a bit more in men these days.
It's not me.
and
I
it's
take
gone-
no pharmaceuticals.
It's gone up a lot since COVID as well.
Okay.
So the stress of that time frame seems
Yep.
to have
That's interesting.
influenced it.
Yeah. So
Because
actually
a
on that
lot of
front-
people I know have gone the other way.
Yeah, I know.
They've gone completely away from pharma.
Depends who
It's
you're hanging with,
interesting, isn't it?
really,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
must be
Yeah.
hanging with the right
I mean,
people.
and on that
Hanging
front,
with the
actually-
right people.
It's so true. Lisa, I don't know if you're aware of this, but yeah, look, it's the figure in America is almost 2/3 of adult women in America are actually on antidepressants.
Are you
2/3.
kidding?
I think it started back in the 1950s.
Yeah, it's been going a while.
Why?
It's crazy. Yeah.
Because we wanted to stay in the kitchen, maybe.
And
I think
what,
this-
they're making us come out and vote.
I think there's a, I think
Gosh.
that figure might be scary, but what's more scary, there's a third of women out there who aren't medicated.
You're sitting next to him.
Here we are.
And I choose this.
Two out of the third.
Oh dear.
I've got a really interesting question, or do we have to go to a break first?
Yeah, I think we should go
that'd
to
be
a break.
fantastic idea. Very much
Yeah.
appreciate
I've
that.
got a good question.
All right, let's get ourselves organised
Oh,
here.
yes, I know what the break is.
Yeah, Leanne just did a really good segue there.
I know.
Very
I do
good.
know.
So you're very slick at this.
I know, I'm getting good at
my-
it.
Just getting good.
Back in just a two.
Is pain holding you back? Bowen Therapy with Panacea Healing can change that for you. It's never too late to recharge your health, career, or purpose. You have the power within yourself to change what no longer serves you, taking your life and health to another level. panaceahealing.com.au. You can do anything.
And we are back on the One Thing on Edge Radio Australia, and we are talking with Doctor. Isn't there a show called that? Was there a show called Doctor?
More than likely.
or a song?
Can't-
I don't know.
Oh, Thompson Twins. Doctor. Can't see 'em burning. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I've got that now. The question I really was interested in, and I know that I'm presuming she was a doctor of chiropractic. She created the modality spinal flow.
Mhm.
Have you ever heard of that?
No, I don't know that one.
You don't know that one?
No.
Okay. And it's not, there's no, and that's working with the nervous system of the spine.
Yep.
I've had it once. I think I fell asleep. Was that nice?
Wow.
I enjoyed the treatment I had
Oh,
with
you
that
had
as
spinal
well.
flow as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's just it's to create what was her name? Carly something or other. To create the flow of the nervous system down the spine. I don't know how it works, but I thought I'd ask you. And you'd
Sure.
have never heard of it. So there you go.
Mm.
There's
Don't
a
know
bit
that
of
one.
research for you.
Could be to do with the cerebrospinal
Carly
fluid,
Axford, I
helping
think.
that one flow.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yep.
It's such a fascinating topic, right? It really is. Like, as I say, for me, because I've seen it in my life change, but
Yeah.
as you said, the principles have stayed the same.
Yeah.
And I, for somebody who has always been, I've been very resistant to take medication through my life, right? I'm the old, have a glass of water rather than the old Pandora,
Yeah.
if you can. And I've got some, I'm allergic to penicillin and things like that, so
Yeah.
it becomes a bit of an issue. So anything for me that can actually avoid that, and particularly now, certainly over the last 5 years, we've learnt a lot about the medications out there.
Yeah.
And a lot of us just want to avoid that at all costs. So anything that can take away pain without popping a pill, love it.
Yeah, and it goes further than that. So one of the problems with anti-inflammatories is they do help you manage pain, right?
Mhm.
They do reduce inflammation in the most part. That can help people a lot.
Sure.
Problem is they stop the second part of healing as
Okay.
well. So there's two stages to inflammation.
Right.
That second part is also restricted, which means you then have that more likely to go into chronic pain, in my opinion.
Okay.
So there's a misnomer out there that's been published a lot of times that acute pain is self-limiting. And
Is what,
it's
sorry?
self-limiting. So
Oh,
if
right.
you just leave it alone, it'll go away.
Hmm.
So acute pain
Really?
apparently goes away on its own,
Okay.
but chronic pain's been going up through the roof. Right? We've never had people in more chronic pain.
Yeah.
So can you just explain for people listening, what's the difference between acute and chronic? What?
Time frame.
Okay.
So acute pain would be like you
You
sprained
twisted
your
your knee,
ankle
yeah.
or you twisted your knee.
Okay.
You get swelling, it heals, it goes away.
Mm-hmm.
And then chronic pain is when we start to see changes within the joint structure or chronicity of that pain. So it's staying around longer. And then you get changes in how you perceive pain. You can start to get depression. You might start to get damage within the joint, those sorts of things. So,
Okay.
and it's also to do with length of time. So chronic acute is And you can have acute episodes of chronic conditions. So you can have a flare up.
Yes.
And then it goes away and you have this background pain as well.
Okay.
So if there's inflammation involved and it hangs around and people aren't taking medication, and you come into the scene to help, resolve the issue, whatever it may be, what's a great time frame that you can assist in that inflammation actually reducing? Or do you give them some other tools that they can take home to help with that?
Yeah.
Or,
apart from addressing them from the chiropractic point, which is really about restoring motion through the joint. So you want to have a joint that can move fully throughout it. And that's important, not just from a neurological point of view. You get a lot of proprioception up to the brain. And when we talk about health, we talk about, I guess, essential nutrients, right? So for the brain, an essential nutrient is water or oxygen, actually, glucose, and then stimulation.
Right.
So they're the 3 essential nutrients for the nervous system, right? And 90% of the stimulation to the brain comes from proprioceptive input from the spine. So having each segment that can move and move fully is really important for that stimulation to the brain.
Gotcha.
Right? So that's that base part. Then to go beyond that, there are other essential nutrients that we need, right? So that's where walking is really important. So we talk about 10,000 steps a day.
Yeah.
So that's not just because we want you to stay slim. It's we actually want the stimulation from the movement to the brain, right? And then,
does swimming do the same thing?
Yeah. So if you don't like walking, go for a swim. Like it doesn't really.
Bike riding.
We just like you moving.
Kayaking.
And then you can
not rally car driving. That does not come into it.
That does not count.
Does not come into it. All right.
I'll tell you right now, people don't understand the physical. What the pressures. It's unbelievable.
It's phenomenal.
Most of it, right?
Yeah.
It does a lot to your body.
So is that okay?
Well, the training to be strong enough is good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Training to be strong enough to race is really important. Yep.
What, just sitting in a car?
Oh, it's just sitting in a car. Oh my god. Okay. If I was just explain this then. If I'm just sitting in a car, back in the day, I actually wore a monitor, right, to see my pulse, right, and I peaked out at over 220 beats a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. I was fit. I had a resting heartbeat of 60 beats a minute. So I mean that's a hell of a range. So if you're just sitting in a car, why does your body do that? Because you're under incredible strain. Yeah. Like you really are. And this is why.
You're fearing for your life.
No, it is. People are blown away by the physicality of it. You don't realise, even with the best gear, which is holding you in very, very tight. So, you've got that aspect to it. Because believe it or not, bad seats or bad harnesses will mean you will chew, more energy, right? So you lose about 3 kilos a day. Most of that's water. That's standard practice. So it's a lot. But yeah, from my point of view, and I'm not just selling that as it's just my reality. But from that and other poor choices I've made in my life, I've done a lot of damage to my back. So were you saying?
So I would say increase your adaptability. So for us within chiropractic, the stress isn't the issue; it's your ability to adapt to the stress. That's the issue, right? So stress can be good for you.
Sure.
So going for a walk or going for a run or doing exercise is a stress.
Makes sense.
And when you adapt to it and then have the ability for your body to recover and heal, you get stronger.
Yes.
Right. So when you lose your body's ability to adapt, that's when you get injured. So we can use high blood pressure, right? So when your heart rate, when you're in that sort of environment with the adrenaline that's going through you, your heart rate goes up and your blood pressure goes up.
Sure.
That's really normal, really healthy, right? Your body's trying to increase oxygen to the cells of its body, right? Now, if we're sitting here and you've got really high blood pressure now, that's bad because you've lost the ability to adapt.
Yeah.
Now, if you change that with a pharmaceutical, you haven't actually improved. What you've done there is you've reduced the blood pressure, right? But you haven't increased the oxygen to the cells.
No.
So then we put it under a different form of strain.
Okay.
But if you
causing
then went,
another issue.
I've got high blood pressure, and then you went out and you changed your lifestyle and you brought it back naturally, then you'd have a different set of health outcomes.
Yeah. No, I thoroughly agree.
Yeah.
And I've actually done some of those sorts of things for myself. And then just lifestyle changes make very, very big changes to your life.
And so part of getting back to your question, what we do there is we talk to people about how do you become a fast reactor. So typically what we find within the research is that 50% of people are fast responders, right?
Yeah.
So that means they'll be 50% better within the first 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Wow.
So how do we get them to there? How do we get more people into that space? That also means 50% of people aren't.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
So
But 50% is a good
But that doesn't mean
still a good outcome.
and that doesn't mean those people who can't get good results. It just means they're not as fast.
Yes.
Right? So we talk about how do we support inflammation so that one, it becomes healing, and we do that through more essential nutrients like fish oils, vitamin D, magnesium, and magnesium is probably, in my opinion, a really popular, good one for Australia.
It is very good.
It's what I call a geographical supplement.
Okay.
Where we don't have enough of it.
Yeah, we don't have enough of it in our soil.
Yeah.
So that means we don't have enough of it in our food, which means it's a really good one to supplement.
Right.
Now, one thing I have heard of is sea moss.
Sea moss.
Have you ever heard of sea moss?
I have
Has
heard of sea moss,
92 minerals. However, there's a couple more they add into it to make the essential amount. Maybe it's a little bit more than 92, but a couple more other supplements they put into it to increase it up to the 102 that the body uses.
Yeah.
And I was just fascinated by it. And the reason I was fascinated by it was because that gentleman on the weekend who was a farmer who had really poor soils was talking about seaweed and the seaweed. And what do we put on what do we put on our gardens? We put on seaweed extract when we want to build up the nutrients, right?
Yeah.
So that's my question, is something like that would probably build up our, I don't know, I've got to do a little bit more research into it, but that's what fascinates me, stuff like that.
Well, I know a lot of the farmers that we have coming in now are talking about building up the soil.
Yeah,
and part of that is so they become more drought resistant. Because they found that if the soil's got a lot of nutrients in it, naturally it can handle having less water.
Sure.
But that's not my area. So
No,
but
that's something like that. So sea moss.
One of the things I didn't ask you at the beginning was, at what age did you decide that you were going to be a chiropractor?
Oh, yeah, true.
Oh, that's a good question. So I guess if you go back to my journey, it started when I was about 4 or 5.
Wow.
I love the sound of that.
So we went to visit some family friends, and they have, is it 5 or 6 kids that are all became chiropractors.
Wow.
Jeez.
So also sextons, actually not related, but
Interesting.
They got talking to my parents, and they found out that as a kid I used to wet the bed, so we call that enuresis.
Yeah.
And my mum and dad had tried lots of things. They tried. I went to a psychologist. I had all sorts of tests.
Wow. So what age was this?
I had alarms. I used to sleep through the alarms.
Yeah,
my whole family used to wake up.
One of mine had alarms.
Yeah, and so they spoke to them about
Bowen then, or
possibly chiropractic helping, and so that's what sent me there. And then they
I wonder-
found
and Bowen therapy helps as well.
Yeah,
Great.
Yeah,
can be,
Chiro, Bowen,
yeah,
it's amazing. I
it
didn't
can
hear
be
that
awesome.
either.
Learn something new every day.
And so that was my journey into it. And then they found the health benefits for me sort of went beyond that, and the chiropractors talked to them about how it could help. And so all my family started going to see a chiropractor, and we just found the health benefits to be amazing.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
My sister used to get really bad migraines, and she,
That's great.
That sort of stopped. My mum
might
and dad
go
had
see a
other health
chiropractor,
issues that are probably not allowed.
You're not allowed to say.
But they improved.
Yeah.
And, so I'd just say in general, our health overall was really, really
So
good.
build your immune system.
Yeah, and we, mum and dad, you get your Medicare statement back in the day with the paper statement that used to get sent out to you, right?
Yeah.
And we went once a year to the doctor for the checkup. We weren't going for anything else.
Right.
So that was one of the things that mum and dad were like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. And then, there's a debate. One of my other sisters is a chiropractor, and she's amazing, Jo, and she taught me heaps. But there's a disagreement between the two of us as to who wanted to be a chiropractor first. She's older.
So she has first pick.
She reckons that she did. So we'll go with that.
Go with that.
But anyway, she's been hugely influential in my journey as a chiropractor.
Do chiropractors also use needling?
If you get, it's not a chiropractic thing.
No, that's right. But
so
I've
some
heard a lot use
chiropractors
them.
have done extra studies to do
Okay,
it. It's
dry needling or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that's a chiropractic technique, but some chiropractors.
And some use a gun, like
the activator.
Yeah.
The activator.
So that's a really interesting technique. So that came out of something called toggle, which is where you use it's like a rebound technique.
Yeah.
But it was hurting people's thumbs. So they developed the activator.
Right.
And,
I prefer the activator.
Of course.
Yeah, the activator. So that
we won't go down that path anyway.
that one works in again just moving the joint. So they've calibrated it to create the most movement within the joint space.
Can you just go to a chiropractor because you want to?
Yeah.
Or do you have to have something wrong?
No, well, that depends a little bit on the chiropractor, but for me, it's about function. So you could just come into me and say, can you do an assessment to see whether or not my body's functioning at its best?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Cool.
Yeah.
Question down the bottom there. What are some of the more recent developments in chiropractics that interest you most? Dr. Conor.
So I guess this is probably some of the research. So Chestnut's got some great stuff.
Yep.
There's another lady called Heidi.
Oh, that's carton.
Oh, that's a carton.
Oh, that's carton. Evidence right there.
I had it turned down. Sorry, guys.
So there's another lady called Heidi Harvick from she's at the New Zealand College of Chiropractic, and she's doing some really great research. So they've been looking at the effect of the neurology and what the impact that the adjustment has on the nervous system. So I guess the old school analogy was the foot on hose. So you have a subluxation that puts pressure on the nerve, and that affects where that nerve goes to.
Right. Okay.
What we're finding, or what they're finding now within the research, is it's actually got more to do with how the brain processes information. So there's some really interesting aspects, and it's starting to help us understand why some of the things that we would see within practice and go, oh, that's how that happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So because we're talking very much about the trusting your body and not trusting pharmaceuticals as much, have you got any case studies of people coming in? Because, of course, you can't tell them to go off their medication.
Now, just to clarify, that's what we're saying. You're not saying that at all.
No, but have you got any case studies of how after they've had chiropractic care, they've felt healthier with their trillions of cells operating properly?
Yeah, there are lots of case studies around that, and there's some meta-analysis studies on that too, I'm pretty sure. But, there's certainly, that's one of the things that anecdotally we've noticed but haven't been able to fully explain. One of the things that we're starting to see within the neurology is when you have someone who's in chronic pain, it doesn't just affect the levels of pain they're in. We've noticed that people with chronic pain are more likely to have depression, and they're more likely to not make the right health decisions. And so they're finding that when you restore stimulation to the brain, and that stimulation to the brain improves, not only does your pain response increase, but also by pain response, pain's a funny thing. It's actually an emotional response to a nociceptive input. So what that means is you have the pain nerve, which is the nociceptor, and it sends a message to the brain. That doesn't mean you'll feel pain. What that means is that you'll have it's your emotional response to that input which determines your pain. Right?
So what your emotions are making the decision, I guess.
Correct. So if you break the threshold, you'll feel pain. If you're under the threshold, you won't feel pain.
Okay.
Right. So one way people have helped that in the past is they've used something like a TENS machine.
Yep.
Right, which overrides the pain stimulation, so you don't feel the pain.
I used that when I was pregnant.
Yeah,
going to labour.
So it works in the early stages, not so much later.
Yeah, no. In the early stages of labour, I had the TENS machine.
Yeah,
on.
so that's using a proprioceptive input, right? Okay. So when we find that people in chronic pain, their threshold decreases. So they're more likely to feel pain.
Really?
Yeah, so it takes less input. So that's when you get that hypersensitivity to pain.
I feel the opposite takes place. Certainly in me it does.
Well, So, and again, it's everyone's different.
Wow.
Right? So
because you just get used to it and you work around the pain.
That's for some people.
Right.
And then you have people are more likely to be depressed, and they're more likely to make poorer health decisions. And then they've found that people, and you see this, I'm sure people who are in gyms notice this, like people start coming in, they start moving, and then all of a sudden it's easier to eat better. And when you're in routine, it's easier to continue to.
I never have trouble eating.
Or make healthier choices with what they're eating.
Oh, is that what you mean? All right.
So what they've found is
doesn't mean you learn how to chew. No.
So that's the interesting side of it. So for me, we're starting to understand that there's more to it than just pain.
Yeah.
And so
it's lifestyle.
Yeah, lifestyle. And one study found that when your neck's moving better, you've got better awareness of where your elbow is.
Okay.
Right? So if you're a rally driver, it's really important to know where your elbow is because that
Does it
helps
help
you
you
with
skip?
steering input. Right?
Does it help you skip
Should
as well?
help you skip,
Oh yeah, Lisa's skipping.
Yeah.
Hilarious. We need to video
Can
that.
everyone that's listening skip? I can't skip.
No, we
You should
can't.
be able to
learning
We
to
can't.
skip.
I can skip.
But on
I
that
look awkward,
point,
but I can skip.
but on the point where you said about, and I'll bring up
Gotta
the rally driving
practice.
gig because it's my
Yeah.
thing. But I mean, I went go karting with some mates who were bucks, the other couple of years ago, sort of thing. And I'm in terrible physical shape these days, right?
Mm.
And I struggled. Like it was difficult. It was
Yeah.
painful. It was awkward. It was totally different. And I'm used to whenever I go karting through the last 30 years of my life, I kick ass, I go home, right?
Yeah.
I beat everybody and I go home. I struggled and I was just in trouble, and just exactly that, because the pain was actually affecting my mental abilities and
Yeah.
my ability to keep cool and my my ability to. Because to go truly fast, you need to be very, very calm and very, very. You process things very differently.
Yeah.
So I felt my brain work poorly because of my lack of conditioning.
Yeah. And so I guess that's when you go back to that question of what's exciting me the most is that and that's not just coming from someone like Heidi Harvick, who's doing it from a chiropractic perspective, but that's coming from general neurologists who are going, there's this interesting play that we're seeing.
Yeah.
Here. Yeah.
Cool.
And I'm guessing, I know that it's a fact, sleep is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And quality of sleep. too.
Hydration.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very
And it's not
important.
like 2 liters a day, right? That's depends on your body weight. Like
Mm.
someone who's 100 kilos needs to drink more water than someone
Yeah,
who's
makes
50
sense.
kilos.
Mm.
And then the quality of water.
But even to get a 100-kilo person to drink 2 liters of water is sometimes a struggle. So
Yeah.
start at 2 liters.
Yeah. And do you have the salt balance to retain
yeah,
it?
exactly.
as well.
You need that mineral
Yeah,
balance
the
and
mineral
salt.
balance.
So
as
just
well.
putting hops and barley will
No, it doesn't qualify.
in the water? No.
It doesn't qualify.
Not
Sorry.
quite. Yeah.
I like the fact that several people in this room have got a drink, but they're all hiding those. I just
I know.
I'm out and proud.
Several people, just you two. Thank you
only
very
you.
much.
Oh, there you go.
Let's go,
You
bye.
did- okay, there we go.
I'm good.
Yes.
Wow.
Oh, what's in
Might hit
that
another-
cup?
So
What's really
where can people find you, Connor?
Sure. So I'm in at Mindari Chiropractic. So mindaricchiro.com.
Yep. Awesome.
And then, there's some great websites around as well if you want to find a chiropractor in your area. So if you're interested in SOT, you can look up the SOT website. They'll tell you wherever they are in Australia, if there's someone nearby you.
Right.
Or if you want to get a general chiropractor, the ACA, the Australian Chiropractic Association, or they'll be able to direct you to a chiropractor as well.
You've been very, very informative, and
So true.
you've almost made me comfortable enough to go and see a chiropractor.
Almost. Well,
I'll come back again.
Yeah,
there you go.
okay.
Yeah.
I've got a table in there.
ready to go. From my point of view, chiropractics has absolutely changed my life. It made such a big difference in my life, and I'm very, very glad that I've had it in my life at different stages when I've needed it. And perhaps maybe I shouldn't have had those times where I kind of let it go. Maybe I should have actually kept going.
It's been one of the overall
beneficial.
guiding principles in my life.
Mm.
And not just, we call it the chiropractic lifestyle.
Yep.
So the chiropractic lifestyle is about how do you live a healthy life. So if I get unwell or sick, then it's, well, what have I done? What have I done that's led up to me getting sick? So it is doing what I need to do in the moment, but then also addressing those underlying.
Is that called
Aspect.
personal responsibility? I've heard of it.
Yeah.
Well, I call it hope, right? Or
Hope.
hopium, right? Because you've got, if people understand that they're the people who are in control of their health,
Yeah.
they've got hope for changing that, right? It's not because you're born with a certain DNA.
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
DNA, you're a genetic superstar. And I know that because your ancestors didn't die, right? And no species in the history of the earth
Mhm.
has died out because the genes failed them. So we've got the ability, and health is that default state. So if you get sick,
Mhm.
I love you, but you suck. Right? So
And on that bombshell,
Yeah.
we'll end the show. Any last thoughts, ladies?
No, just thank you very much for coming.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks
the
for
last
coming
one will
in,
probably
Connor.
get me in trouble.
You got to live on the edge, my friend.
You've got to live on the edge. We're at Edge Radio Australia.
Oh, yes. Thanks for being part of the one thing here on Edge Radio.
Ever felt lost online finding the right businesses?
Absolutely, like a needle in a haystack.
Introducing the Worldwide Awake Business Directory.
Tell me more.
It's your hub for businesses sharing your values. Discover eco-friendly products, socially responsible services, and more.
Count me in. I'll check it out straight away.
Find businesses aligned with your values on the Worldwide Awake Business Directory. Start making a difference with every purchase.